goes towards Holland Road. Brilliant save indeed. Walsh has scored. Leicester City are in dreamland now. Vardy in the middle. This could be a huge moment. Vardy scores. And it's pandemonium in Leicester.
Mares with his left, Albrighton with his right. It is Mares. It's a good ball in. Morgan's there. It's in. Leicester City score. It is a captain's goal from Wes Morgan, who lifted the Premier League trophy in May. He might have played a big part now in taking Leicester City through to the quarter-finals of the Champions League.
Lift the trophy to the skies. Leicester City are the champions of the Premier League. 5,000 to 1.
Good evening and welcome to Blue Tinted Glasses, and it's a bit of a special day. The club doesn't normally announce much news these days, but finally, it's taken, 85 days, but Leicester City, we have a new manager, and it is Marti Cifuentes. Vamos, Marti! I'm joined obviously with the host with the most, it is Lux. Well, I just asked you, but I want to ask you again, how are you feeling? It's finally happened. Are you excited? Are you just relieved? What are you feeling?
Yeah, you asked me. Am I excited or relieved? Both. Both. I'm relieved that I'm not going to be checking my phone every half an hour on the hour. You know what I mean? Every hour and a half hour anymore, because that's literally what I've been doing for the last 2 weeks, checking social media every half hour. So I'm glad that's out of the way. But of course, I think, Marti Cifuentes is the right man for the job out of all of the names that have been mentioned. And Neil's going to kindly show us why that is the case. And hopefully everybody in the chat agrees. If they don't, feel free to let us know in the comments why you disagree and why you don't think, because we will bring comments up later in the stream for sure.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting appointment. I think there's going to be a lot of discussion around it. What we'll do towards the end of the show is we will put up a poll saying, Marti Cifuentes, do you think this is a good appointment for Leicester City? I'm going to try and do an objective take to sort of show the pros and cons. And we're going to be using a lot of footage at this time at QPR. But we're also going to be doing something a bit different this time around, which we'll touch on this time around, which I think will be quite fun. But we'll just go through some of the comments here. Is he even good? Let's find out in a second. It's the party analysis. Looking forward to this. Yeah, it's been a while. And I have to say, this is a manager I think should be a lot more interesting than the one that we previously had. And it is better than having no manager. And Rye's getting it very early. Cifuentes out, which could be the thing. Just before we jump into the analysis, Lux, let me ask you, what do you think success looks like this season? And what are your expectations going into the season?
It's been so difficult to talk about this, and it still is, because we don't know for sure what punishment we're going to get. So I'm going to be pessimistic. I'm going to go on the negative side here and say that we're going to get a hefty deduction. Mm-hmm. And I think success is the playoff final. I think get yourself one game away from the Premier League with all the stuff going on at the club, with the delays that we've had to wait for the manager, manager coming in late, with players who probably want to leave, with financial issues, with potential deductions. I think, reaching the playoff final would be successful season. And of course, it's a great day out for all the fans as well. I don't know what I would do, whether it would be a watch along or if I'd be there. I'd probably be there. Sorry to tell people, but no, I think with a deduction, a successful season is the playoffs. Without a deduction, if we somehow manage to just get out of it completely again, which I do doubt, I think we should be aiming for top two. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, we should be aiming for top two.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. The rumor at the moment is a 9-point deduction, although there are rumors of a double deduction coming in. I think with 9 points, do you think we could make top two? No, I think you're probably right to say playoff finals would be the one. I agree. I think 6, maybe you'd have a chance, but I think 9 just sort of feels like it's one result too far. 2 teams, basically got there to 100 points last season. I'm not sure we quite that much this season, we'll have to say. John Hayward, is there much difference between Cifuentes and Roll tactically? There's quite a big difference, and we're going to get into that now. So let's go through then our new manager. He's arrived at the King Power. He's going to Austria tomorrow, no doubt, with the team. But it's Marti Cifuentes, and let's take a look at how he likes to play. So Marti is 42 years old, born in Catalonia in Spain, and he's been influenced quite heavily by a certain style of play. And when I was looking into this, it kind of reminded me of something quite interesting when I was younger. So maybe I'll ask you this, Lux. When I was a lad, I remember asking my dad, and I said to him, Dad, what's the best team you've ever seen play football? And I want to get chat involved here. So what is the best team that you've ever seen? And how about you, Lux? What's the best team that you've seen play? Could be any era, any time that you particularly enjoyed.
Well, obviously I'm younger, so the best team I ever saw was Barcelona MSN, Messi, Suarez, Neymar. That year they won the treble, right?
They did. They did.
That was the most enjoyable. That was the most, like, if Barcelona play now, even if it's an El Clasico, I won't turn it on, mate. To be honest with you, I won't watch it. But back then, Messi, Suarez, Neymar, the football they played, I was all over that. So that was probably the best team I've ever played, other than Leicester winning the league, of course.
Of course. Well, funny enough, I've got to say, you got great taste. That's personally, I would give that team as well. And I think you're right. I think that Enrique's Barcelona was more exciting to watch than Pep's. Pep's was obviously a great team. They maybe even achieved more. But I do think that MSN was just absolutely ridiculous. I think it's a bit like this current Paris Saint-Germain team that we're looking at, but even better because they had higher class players. But anyway, I spoke to my dad and he said, well, funny enough, the best team that I've ever seen play, you're going to think this is a bit odd, but they haven't even actually won anything, but they were really, really good. And let me ask you a question. You probably won't know this. This one's for people in chat. Does anyone know who this gentleman is? Because this guy is pretty important to, I think, a lot of modern football. Any ideas?
I'm going to guess, just because I've heard it. Is it a name we've heard on the channel before? Is it this ain't, I don't know. Is this Rinus Michels or whatever his name is?
Oh my word. Lux is leveling up in real time. It is Rinus Michels, not Mr. Burns as Jess has put there. It is the master of total football. Now, this guy, he managed the Ajax team in the 70s. He won the European Cup 3 times in a row. Then he went to manage the Dutch team, and that's the team that my dad was talking about. He was talking about the Dutch in the 70s and total football. Yep. Now, I'm going to bring up our first of videos, and this might be a bit boomer football for you, Logs, but I think this is important to get a little bit of a history lesson, to understand where these ideas came from and how it developed over time. So
this is like something that you would see these days, right? From a Man City or something like that. This is how you would see them play.
Exactly. So that's the sort of idea that I wanted to get ahead. And so you can see that the pace was slower, but they played really good. And it's funny here, has Myers put here, Enzo ball. And it sort of was the kind of case. And yeah, it was really, really impressive to see. And you can sort of see it. And the star of the show for this particular team was this guy, Johan Cruyff. People say that this is the best footballer that's never won the World Cup. I think he did win the Ballon d'Or 3 times. He played for many clubs, including Barcelona, which we're going to come to in a moment. But fun fact of Johan Cruyff, and some of you may or may not know this, but did you know this? How Johan Cruyff nearly signed for Leicester City in January 1981. Now, at this point, he decided to go to the US, so he's sort of towards the end of his career. But Frankie is right. How amazing would it have been if one of the greatest players of all time played for us? I don't know. Maybe this sort of tie is going to be kind of interesting, that maybe we're going to get our version of it in Marti in terms of exactly. It is genuinely true. They actually were discussing up lots and lots of documents, and I think there was a contract, so lots of stuff to sort of look at. So anyway, that was Johan Cruyff, the player, but Johan Cruyff became a manager. Oh yes, you better believe. But there's a lot of video and stuff. We'll go through it quick, right? In 1988, Johan Cruyff, he became the manager of Barcelona, and this was an interesting time. People may not remember this, but Barcelona weren't always a massive success they were today. At this point in time, they had a fractured board, sound familiar? They had mounting debt, sound familiar? And they had decreasing attendance. And they were basically in a bit of a state. And in the 30 years before Johan Cruyff was the Barcelona manager, believe it or not, Barcelona were not a particularly successful team. They'd won the league just 3 times in that 30 years, and they hadn't won many cup competitions. So far from a sort of dominant team that we see today. And what Johan Cruyff did is he came in and he completely changed it and sort of changed the modern football. And he created this. This is probably the best team before the MSN team that I think I saw growing up. And this is the Barcelona Dream Team. Not to be confused with the Dream Team on Sky One, Harchester United, for those that remember, the streets will never forget. And you can even see in this Dream Team. Do you know who this is?
Oh, Mr. Guardiola.
That is Pep Guardiola, and here is Ronald Koeman, and there's a few others in the team as well. So this is where all the ideas kind of came from. And his sort of influence as a manager, Johan Cruyff, is incredible because basically a lot of Pep stuff came from Cruyff first, which came from Rinus Michaels. So that's where we're going to get to. And in terms of how effective was it, so you can see in the 30 years before Cruyff, they won 3 league titles. In Cruyff's 8 years at the club, they won the league 4 times in a row. They won the European Cup, the Cup Winners' Cup, the UEFA Cup, and 3 Spanish leagues, and the Intercontinental Cup. Pretty successful. So I think when you say dream team, this is what it is. And some of these names that are coming up in chat, it's interesting you mentioned them because we're going to be talking about them a bit later. So unbelievable team this was. And just quickly, I want to play this in the background. So this is Barcelona against Real Madrid, and they beat them 5-0 with Johan Cruyff in charge. And you'll see some of this play and some of these patterns of play. And again, you might say things like Enzo ball, Pep ball, and some of these things you will see. This is Romario. Remember him and Bebeto doing the old World Cup celebration. Exactly. And if Lots is thinking, is this just like some sort of boomer session for Anil to sort of reminisce about one of his favourite teams? Partly, yes, but I think it is important.
Yeah. It's the history, isn't it? It's the history of the brand of football that we will be seeing. So yeah,
exactly how we're going to play. You can see there, Pep actually played the ball to me, kind of moving forwards from roaming from his sort of regista position, and we skipped the score a little bit, maybe. That's Ronald Koeman, centre back, just boshing in a free kick. Pretty nice.
Isn't he the highest scoring defender of all time?
Yeah, he even scored in the Champions League final with a free kick as well, which is unbelievable. Here's Pep again, ball over the top. Real Madrid caught napping. That's Stoichkov, Romario, boom.
Stoichkov, yeah.
Yeah, 3-0. And I think I'll just get to the end here. You'll see some... Oh, this is loud drop. Look at that no-look pass. That's from a Danish player who needs no glazing. That's Pep again. And this is their fullback running forward in the 88th minute of the game to put 5-0. So they didn't just sit back on the lead. Unbelievable team this was. Let's go to the next slide. So, oh yeah, I just wanted to bring this up. It's pretty funny. The same team, they even beat Man United when Man United were champions of England 4-0. So really, really impressive team. And that was a real sort of landmark moment to sort of see the difference between English football and continental football at the time. So here's another question for you in chat. You probably heard Pep talk about this, but what this sort of Barcelona system and Marti style is based on, I've even seen him say it in interviews, is the 3 Ps. Do you know what the 3 Ps are?
Is one of them possession?
Boom, yes.
One of them pressing?
Yes. One more to get.
I don't know. I've only got 2 out of 3.
Positioning.
Okay, of course.
These are the 3 sort of big principles. You can see here again, there are 3 people in this picture. You've got Pep, you've got Rinus Michaels, and you've got Johan Cruyff. So again, you're sort of seeing that philosophy. And I'd say that these same sort of principles then gone on to Enzo Maresca, Luis Enrique, Vincent Kompany, and Marti Cifuentes. So at the time, Barcelona, they played in a 4-3-3. Now, that's something that is not too different. We've even seen us line up this a few times in pre-season. But Johan Cruyff was a bit of a madman. And I'm wondering if Marti will do this with Leicester, because I have seen him do some of these sort of things with QPR, although he did move to a more pragmatic style, probably for understandable reasons. So Johan Cruyff came into the Barcelona dressing room one day and he drew this on the blackboard. And this is a 3-4-3. And I love this quote. This is from one of their players, Eusebio. He goes, "We looked at each other and said, what the hell is this? This was the era of the 4-4-2 or 3-5-2. We couldn't believe how many attackers were in the team and how few defenders. He single-handedly introduced a new way of playing football in Spain." And here is the dream team, as they called it. And this is how they lined up out of possession, but they would change in possession. And yeah, what a team this was. You can see you've got your Guardiola, you've got Romario, Stoichkov, you've got Cruyff's son, actually, Jordi Cruyff in the team. You've got Albert Ferrer, Sergi, Ronald Koeman. They're the different Busquets, not the one that you're thinking of in goal. So this is a really, really great team. Now, Johan Cruyff, what he wanted to do with the 4-3-3 is that he recognized a few problems in it. And this is what's also innovation in football. What he wanted to do is he ideally wanted to have a diamond in midfield so that every time a player received the ball, they had two people they could pass the ball to. But in order to do that, he would have to go for a system like this, which is like a 4-4-2 diamond. And, well, you can see what the problem here is already, right? You've got these two massive gaps here in red. So if you played a system like this, you would basically be giving too much space to the wingers and it would cause you trouble. So his solution to this was to go to a 3-4-3. But the other thing he felt was unnecessary, and you've seen this in games as well, is that, why did teams move to this sort of three centre-backs? And it's because if the opposition is defending in a 4-4-2, and that's how we defended last season, if you've got four people at the back, you've got two people that aren't doing anything. It's unnecessary. And it also means that in the attacking phase, you've only got 6 against their 8. So that would be a sort of classic Sean Dyche, maybe Chris Wilder, maybe that's being a bit unfair sort of style. So hence he moved to this system, which is 3-4-3. So you've got two wingers. You've still got this diamond in midfield, which means maybe a number 10. We'll talk about that in a moment. And of course, a striker. But even more interesting than this, he actually would stagger his lines as well. So it wasn't just like 3 people standing in line, but he'd have one person who was further back than the other 2 defenders. And the reason he would do that is to allow for these sort of diamonds and triangles. So what you're going to see in Marti ball and the way that he was operating with QPR, you're going to see lots of fast passing and triangles and people moving. And I think if I'd say what is the biggest difference between Maresca and Marti Cifuentes is Marti's more like the older Barcelona teams that really play the ball quickly. We know of Enzo that he was quite happy for Yannick Vestergaard to just stand there on the ball and wait. But that's not the case. In this sort of style of football, the ball's got to be moved. And it's going to be moving quickly from left to right. Circulation is
and
very
just to ask that as well with Maresca, how it was slower and it was more patient. I'm guessing the reason for that was because if you've got the ball, you can't concede, right? He wanted to limit the risk of turning the ball over, which is why he wanted to keep it as much as possible. So from the sounds of it, I know we'll get on. I don't want to jump ahead, but Marti is a bit more risky with his style.
I think you should do the analysis shows from now on. Bang on. And we're going to show you some clips towards the end. If that's the reason why, in my opinion, he didn't achieve as much with QPR as possibly he will do at Leicester, because you're going to see some examples of them getting caught out. So now I want to talk about key players of how this sort of system works and how this is going to work, I think, with Leicester going forward. So first up is a ball-playing defender. Now, I showed you before, for Barcelona, they had Ronald Koeman. Ronald Koeman is, I think, hideously underrated as a player. As a manager, maybe not so much, but as a player, he was genuinely a world-class centre-back. He could actually play in midfield, really, but he was just stepping back. So he could play with his feet. He's like you said, the highest goal-scoring defender at the time, and wonderful on the ball, and he could also dribble. But what Koeman was really important for is he was the guy that was there to sort of like playmake from the centre-back position. Now, this is something that we did see under Enzo, and of course, it was Vestergaard. But I think a lot of us will probably be saying that having Yannick in the team is a big risk because we know that he's kind of slow. And if we're talking about only having 3 people at the back and pushing people more forward, then having him in the team, I don't think is going to work. So who's going to be the answer to playing at the back, do you think?
Caleb Coley, Ben Nelson.
Ben Nelson's who I think we're going to see. So we've been looking at pre-season already, and we've already been saying that Ben Nelson has looked great in pre-season. You can see that already he's playing in the middle of the back 3, and you can see he's doing exactly what would be asked for in this sort of system. And this is what I think Marti will probably really love working with. So here you can see in this phase of the play, we've managed to push the ball up. He steps up and he's going to play the ball onto the wing, and he plays a brilliant ball. And Mavididi gets it, controls it first time, cuts in, and we make an opportunity from this. So I expected to see this being a big feature of our play. You can actually see here as well, you can see that a lot of players here are more compacted into the right-hand side of the pitch. So that's why when it goes back to Nelson, he can play the ball out to the left. And you can see that, look, there's acres for him to work with. So that's going to be a big part of our play. Now, we did do that with Enzo as well. We've got to say that that's what we'd like to do. We'd like to try and find either Fatal or Mavididi free. But I think we're going to be going for that sort of switch much faster than we did it under Enzo. And it should be more explosive. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is the regista. So
I'll tell you what, I play a lot of Football Manager and I love a regista.
Yeah, I love a regista. Well, look, again, going back to sort of glazing, I want to just do a little bit of playing here because I think people don't really put enough respect. What about Pep as a player?
I think your microphone's cutting out on that one. You might need to mute that one. It's cutting you off.
Okay, well, let's just watch this clip. So I think you can probably guess who's going to end up playing this position for us going forward. But this is a really important position. In this particular system, what's maybe a bit different to under Enzo is that our lone pivot might be the only player. He might not necessarily have someone around him all the time. So he's going to have a lot more demands put on him. And that's because the player next to him is probably going to be pushing forward. So in this case, at the time, you'd normally go for like a bit of a brick house central midfielder. But Barcelona went for a very technical central defensive midfielder. And yeah, just look at the sort of things that he's doing. So you can see here that I think, a big difference is it won't be so much sideways passing, but look at that. We're looking for those incisive through balls onto players who are rotating, shifting positions, moving left and right, trying to get through and trying to score goals. And yeah, I can show you this for us on. I mean, look at some of this passing. Brilliant. And you got a lot of assists from doing that. So yeah, if you do like yourself a regista, he's good. Look at that. What about that for a slide pass? And how's that for a thing to finish? Unbelievable.
Was that Messi?
No, it wasn't. It just looks like it. And it's funny how, you might think that.
He scored a goal just like that, didn't he? Was it on his debut or something?
Yeah.
I swear. I was thinking the dates don't add up here. Guardiola's quite young there and Messi. But yeah.
Exactly. So look, who's going to play that role for us? I suspect it's going to be Harry Winks. I think he'll probably be licking his lips. They used to call him Winksy Yester at Spurs. We know that he's good in the Championship. It might not be him. I suppose it could be Bouba Samare. He's been playing that at some point. Yeah, exactly. It could be Skip, I suppose. It could be Ricardo. But I think we're going to see it being Harry Winks, and he's going to be vital to the system. Now, you'll see that Harry Winks will be occupying this position. But what will happen, which is a bit different, is you can see that he won't always have, if this is Maresca, which we'll show in a moment, is he would have Ricardo standing next to him. But in this sort of setup, Ricardo would probably push up a little bit further, or maybe this will be Bilal. We don't know. And so what Winks would be doing a lot of the time is he might actually be dropping back to become a defensive player when another player pushes up. So the idea of total football was to have like lots of kind of rotations, people changing positions. So that's really what this sort of player is facilitating you. So the defender plays out to the fullback. The fullback here, maybe it's JJ, maybe it's Ricardo. They're now going to get involved in the attack. So that means that this player's got to step back and take their position, if that makes sense. And now we're going to kind of attack with it. And, this is some good stuff we see here. Yeah, we've seen here, we scored about 50 carbon copies of that goal. He loved the dink. And, that's the thing with system football. System football means you're going to be making these chances over and over. So I think we're going to see that sort of stuff going forward. So here you can see that now we've managed to do this and we've got this extra man, and that's going to be the concept. Enzo liked that as well. So we're going to be always trying to find an extra man. It could be in different phases of play, in different positions. We find that extra man, and that's going to give us a chance to score goals. Now, you might say, okay, that is what he might want to do. But what about the way that we play? This was actually in Enzo's first ever game. And you can see here that we've got the classic box midfield. We've got Ricardo and Winks. Here they are standing next to each other. And we created this low box, as we kind of see. So are we going to see that going there again? Now, we might do, is the answer. Now, actually, the way that QPR tended to play is they didn't always go for this kind of 3-1-3-3. I think because it was QPR and they didn't have so many players, and Marti came to them in sort of a dangerous time, because he often did something more like this, and he would invert both the fullbacks in, and then they would sort of interchange as to which one would go forward. So we might see something like that. So you might see something more of this shape. So you're still seeing attacking with 5, but you're seeing here the difference is maybe rather than having 3 people at the back, you've only got 2, and you've got an extra man here in midfield in this sort of phase. Now, that's going to give you pros and cons as well. The reason you would do this is if the opposition's only going to have 1 man up front, and most teams these days tend to do that, then again, you only really need 2 people to cover them, right? But as we saw with sort of Ange in the Premier League last year, if you invert too many players, you might get caught napping on defense. So we'll have to sort of see this. And yeah, some great comments coming in. We will talk about this because that is going to be a big kind of thing going forward. Now, you'll also see with Marti, I think most of you have probably already seen this. This is on the coach's voice. Really great video if you haven't seen it all 3 already. But when we attack or when we build, he's quite versatile. I think sometimes Enzo was stubborn, although I do think he did have different solutions, as he would say, to the matches he was playing. But here, for example, he would say that he might build up here with a narrow back 3, but sometimes he might actually split the back 3. And that'll be depending on how the opposition plays. So I think, a team that sort of has higher use of the wingers, maybe like Ipswich, he would play more this way. Someone who's going to go more for a 4-4-2, he might make it more narrow. So there's trying to create spaces and angles at different points. You can also see in both these examples that actually there is a player next to the regista here. That won't always be the case. But again, it gives us some kind of clues going forward. But remember this diagram. We are going to come back to that in a moment, sort of see what the big differences are. And here you can see, though, here's QPR now finally in action. So we're going to put the theory into practice and how are they playing. And here you can see that, yeah, they've got two centre-backs. One of the fullbacks is pushed up here to the other halfway line. And the other one is actually pushed really further on to sort of join the attack here. So here they are on a defensive base. So what you're not seeing in the picture is that there's loads of QPR players sort of in this side of the pitch, but the ball's kind of broken on transition. So that's something that we've got to watch out for. But you can still see that he has got decent coverage here. And you can see that if they could find him, the ball on would be to the other winger here if playing against this sort of style. But what that should mean is, a lot of people are saying, hopefully we'll see some goals this season. And I think that this manager, the thing that makes me exciting is I think he is willing to commit that extra man forward. And he's willing to play the ball faster. And he's also willing to go more direct, which we'll see in a moment. And I think if you apply that to all of the players that we have in our team, I think it's going to work, Locks. Again, a bit like Ted Lasso. So let's see if it actually does or it doesn't. But I think it is going to be effective. So the next big thing about this is the way you set this all up is to allow for these extensive rotations. So this is like a big feature. And I think this is, in my opinion, actually one of the weaknesses of the way that Enzo played. He did have this kind of clear structure, but you didn't often, I think, see players sort of take an undue risk other than when one of their players would jump in the press to make gaps in behind. So again, coming from the coach's voice, this sort of 4-3-3 system is all about having these triangles and rotations on either side of the pitch. And this is where I think the exciting stuff comes in. So here's an example between you've got their fullback here, Kenneth Powell, you've got Koki Saito, a Japanese international, and of course, the man who's getting a lot of comments already, Elias Chair. He's a player that's been linked with Leicester quite a few times. And he would normally be playing in this like number 8, number 10 position, Saito the left winger, Powell the winger. But what you'll see is on occasion, or not even on occasion, quite often during a game, is that they would do the same sequence, but the players would move around. And that keeps you guessing as a defender. So in this case, you can see that Saito and Chair have sort of swapped places. And Powell is now drifting in field even. And this is going to keep you guessing. And whether you play zonally or man marking, it doesn't really matter. Either way, even if it's only for a second, it's going to draw you out of position. And it means if you can play the ball quickly and fast enough, and you can find that player, you're going to make space when there previously wasn't any. So that's something to look forward to. And here I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to play a video in a minute, but I'll kind of walk you through this sort of slow-mo first. Here you can see that QPR on the attack. They've got a wide triangle on the right. And again, you can sort of see the positioning that we normally sort of see. The ball breaks them. And here you can see the movement. So this player is going to move into the middle. This player who was in the number 8 position is going to move down to the wing. The ball's now going to get played to him. And look how many players now QPR have got joining the attack, giving them a really exciting attacking sequence. So that's the sort of thing that we're going to see, hopefully, in action this season. And here we're going to have a little video showing exactly that move. So this is like start of the second half against Preston. They're 1-0 down. That's their regista, Varane, picking up the ball. Lovely through ball, nice and direct. They're in. The cutback. And that is a player that we've been linked with, which we're talking about. So really nice football, triangles, rotations, all in one course. And you can just see how effective it is.
What a goal.
I think I've got you another example. So, why stop at one? So here we're going to go for another little example, a different game. So this is against Luton Town. Again, starting in a fullback position. Do you see this lovely wing play? And look at this. This is the guy who's going to end up scoring a goal. But you can see people know what position they've got to take up. Remember your P's.
Yeah.
And you can see, I think, a little bit unlike Enzo as well. They were prepared to go direct there as well and just pump in across to a big man. Now, we don't really have
I was just going to say that, but that is important, I think, for some fans to know, because there are some fans that would shoot down the idea of Marti Cifuentes because it's just tippy-tappy football. I don't need to name them, but you know what I'm trying to say here, right? Whereas there is more to it than that. There is more to it.
Big time. And you saw with both of those goals that they went quite direct quite quickly. I think Enzo wouldn't actually go for a pass that far forward unless he knew that the other team was out of position. But we're going to take more risks doing this. You can also see that the guy who scored there, Michael Frey, he was one of the first signings that Marti made when he was at QPR. And he's just basically a big lad. To be fair to him, I think he's got a good touch for him. He's not the fastest, but he was prepared to attack, and go direct when necessary. So we will see some of that this season for sure. Now, another sort of important player in the sort of Barca system is this idea of a free man. but it's going to tend to be one person more than any other. And this is quite interesting. And I'll be interested to see who you and maybe in chat we think this should be, because there's actually quite a few candidates. So the way that it worked for Barcelona is that these sort of wide central midfielders, they tended to be the most creative players in the team. And that's mainly because they were the ones that often found the space. And we did see that under Enzo, right? Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, there was a reason why he did so well, is he tended to be the guy that found a lot of space on the attacks. And you can see that he was called Eusebio, he was the one right from the beginning. And you can see that becoming the free man, he often would be the one that would get in, finding the space and getting behind and either score or provide an assist. So he's a really, really creative player. But what was interesting is that was in the attacking phase of the game. In the defensive phase of the game, he would join in to be a double pivot alongside this regista. So that makes me wonder who this player is going to be. And I think it might be this guy. I think Marti might be really, really happy to work with someone like Ricardo Pereira. Now, does he have the engine to get up and down as much as he used to? That I think is a fair point. But I think going back, we know that Ricardo is comfortable in this position, playing alongside and in the middle of the park. But we also know how good Ricardo is on the ball. And I think we saw already in the preseason friendlies that Ricardo found himself in this sort of attacking position quite often and causing a lot of damage. So I'm quite excited to see what it is. And I don't think Ricardo will be with us next season. I'm not sure Harry Winks will either, but I think he might have quite the sort of Indian summer to his career in this, what could be his last season for the club. And at QPR, their free man was this guy. It was Jimmy Dunn. So not Ricardo Pereira. But fair play, this is the guy that Marti identified as being the most useful to be their free man. And look at this. Even this guy was nominally a fullback. He had the most goals of any fullback in the league, the most expected goals. And you can see that just if you look at his stats, he doesn't look anything like what a fullback should be. Now, you might be getting some sort of heart attack here thinking, is it just James Justin all over again? But what I want to say is, I'm going to show you some clips of him in a moment, is that Justin was there more to be a winger rather than sort of this idea of a free man. Is a bit different. If we go back, what I'm saying is this guy's going to be a bit narrower. He won't always be narrow. Sometimes he will also get wide, but he's going to be operating more like, you see Cucurella doing this for Chelsea, that he inverts more into being a number 8. That's what I think this type of player will do. And that's why I think Ricardo will be a good fit for it. So I'm going to show you some clips here. So this ball is now after it's going to sort of run loose. This is done. He has actually now found himself on the right-hand side. Play the ball across. And how they haven't scored that, well, this is my point about them potentially being sort of bozo moments at QPR.
Just don't have the quality.
Yes, exactly, because that's basically an open goal there. But you can see here again that they've compacted the game down one side. They're trying to find that free man. In this case, it's this particular player. And again, though, what I want to show you, even though he missed that chance, I will give him credit. Look at his starting position here, Kenneth Powell, who's their left back. So that's their right back to their left back, by the way. Yeah. Really, really attacking football. You can see that the way that they've played, look how much space he's got. They've made this space because of the system. Again, gets it, does really well. Striker manages to drag some men with him. The ball comes to him, and yeah, look at that. He just got to tap it in there, and somehow he misses. But that's not the only thing he'll do. The same player now, before he was on the right-hand side, but now you can see he's popped up here as almost a centre forward. So then if you remember the Champions League final, where Hakam, the Moroccan
Hakimi.
right back, yeah, Hakimi, he scored the first goal, and they were like, why is he in the striker position? This is the idea of finding that free man. So again here, they're going to go direct because Jimmy Dunn, to be fair to him, is a tall lad. The cross has been played into him, and he heads it in, and he gets saved. It's a really good opportunity. So keep an eye on that. What I want to know is who will this player be? It could be many players in our team.
So let me ask you this: is the free man is that a structured role? Is he coached to be in certain positions? Or is it more of a free roaming type of role where the kind of player uses his own judgment, where to be? What do you think to that?
It's a great question. I think they are actually instructed, but they have got license to play. And that's why, again, really what you're looking for is it needs to be a highly intelligent player. So that's, again, why I feel it will be Ricardo. It's got to be someone who's technical, who's intelligent. And that's something that I really think is strong about Ricardo's game is that, I think when he was just the right back, he was great at that. But I've seen him play like a great pass or a great through ball many times too. So I think he's got base that. Yeah, KCK here said probably scenario based. They probably are going to be working on preset patterns. And then I think it'll be down to the player to recognize it. But what I will say, which I think was great about the sort of Barcelona system, is whilst they had attacking patterns of play, It wasn't completely rehearsed. It wasn't always like, oh, if I'm standing here, Locks, you must be standing there. Not quite. When I showed you the triangles, it's more that if I see you walk into that position, I know that I have to walk into that a different position.
So it's like a trigger.
Yeah, a trigger. So it's scenario based, but I wouldn't say it's like a rehearsal. I think if you look at someone for like Conte, to be honest with you, he prefers like really regimented. No, you must do this and nothing else, and that can work as well. There's nothing against that, but it's a bit more free flowing this sort of style, and that's why players tend to enjoy it. So that's an important position, the free man. But the next one we're going to talk about is maybe the most important player in the entire system, which is the playmaker. Now, unfortunately, on blue tinted glasses, and I want to apologize, is that we have a certain individual in the team who does a lot of Danish glazing. And this person will gaslight you into thinking things like Yannick Vestergaard is world class at passing at centre half, that Victor Christensen is a passable left back, or to be fair to him, that Mads Hermansen has got a great future as a player. But those guys, even though they're good, they're not world class. It was brought up earlier in the chat, but one of the stars of this team was Michael Laudrup. This is what a world-class Dane actually looks like. And his role in the team was pivotal. So he would actually drift around between 3 different positions. Here, he was like a central attacking midfielder. But at other times, he might even join the attack to become like a striker or even as a false 9. So he was a very important player. And I'm going to play this. Maybe give a bit of volume if I can. Just watch this a little bit. So this guy, Juventus, and he joined Real Madrid. And when he played for Real Madrid beat Barcelona 5-0. So both Real Madrid and Barcelona, I think he's the only player in history that sort of both clubs respect Michael Laudrup. They just think he's an absolute don. And what I'll ask you, maybe chat and you lot, is looking at the way that he plays, what player in the current Leicester City lineup would most suit this style of play?
Is it Bilal El-Kudus?
Well, that's fine. I actually think it could be a bit different, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Steffi? Go on, you tell me. Monga, Jeremy Monga.
I want to let the video play for a little bit, just because this is one of my favourite players, I've got to say. It's the quick feet, the jinking left and right, but it's also, look, he's not always just scoring. He's actually thinking the pass up into people as well. He makes it. This guy was like such an elegant player, is what I like. He could actually smash it in, but most of the time it was like Frankie gets there.
What a player. He can do it all, it looks like.
He really could do it all. And you might even forget, but this guy actually won the cup with Swansea, the Carabao Cup.
Yes.
So there's more to him than that. But yeah, you can see the grace of peace. I'm going to stop playing it there. I could watch that all day. But yeah, my suggestion actually is this guy,
J-Dog,
Jezza, as we hear him being called in training. And the reason I think it could be Jeremy Monga is I think that sort of close control, the ability to beat a man, the ability to operate in tight spaces. I think Bilal is really good. I actually think Bilal could work really well as that free man actually that I showed you before. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think Bilal's going to be here. That's my honest opinion.
Yeah.
But the other thing that was in the sort of first 2 years of his career, but later on, what Cruyff did, which is really, really clever, is he actually changed the position of Michael Laudrup to be a false 9. Right. And so obviously it's the question that everyone wants to know is who's going to be Leicester City's number 9 this season? Who's going to be the striker? Well, interestingly, for Barcelona, their number 9 was Michael Laudrup. And he actually played as this false 9 and he would combine with the other 3. And what I'm suggesting is that the answer? What if the answer is just to put Mavididi, Monga and Fatawu all into the same team? Because how would you stop those 3? I don't think anyone does, especially if they're rotating all over the place, because that's not really the trick. Is you might think, well, if you don't have a recognised striker, how do you score goals? But I mean, Manchester City proved it with a false 9 many times that you don't necessarily have to have a striker if you've got the rotational play. And here's the sort of thing that I would say is that these players would often change their position. So what you'd see is the 10 would actually go to the left, the left wing would come in, the central attacking midfielder would join in. So you're just causing absolute chaos. And these defenders are getting absolutely maneuvered one way and the other. So really, really good sort of team. And in order to do it, you need to have players that are really technical, good on the ball, fast. And we've got 3 players who could do this. So look, it's probably going to be Jordan Ayew first of the game season. But if it's not, that could be something that we see. And, coming back to this kind of box midfield. So actually, one of the things that Marti does do, he doesn't do it in every game, but he does sometimes go for this. So before we saw it was kind of like a lower box in midfield. This is what's called a high box. So here, the false 9 has dropped in. So you've got this midfield superiority here to make the passing. And here you can see in this example that this is now the free man, or this fullback is the free man. So by doing this, these sort of players are like, what do I do? I'm being taken out of the game. And now this player maybe can even make the run in because these players have been drawn out and this man is free. So that again is sort of the clever with the system. So look, I think that's, do you know what here? Jake Evans, false 9. Do you know what? I think that's a good suggestion, to be honest with you, because I was going to say that the one person who I don't think can be a false 9, you can probably answer it for me, Lux, but who is our current striker at the club?
Yes, touch of a donkey, Patson Daka.
Exactly. And I think Patson Daka is sort of the opposite of what Michael Laudrup would be.
And we saw that video that I posted in the chat this morning of Jake Evans, that goal he took. He was bombing down the left wing, diag straight across over the top, and he just takes it first time in his stride, one shot, goal, clinical.
Do you know what? If you don't mind, let's bring that up for the end of the show. Let's have a look at that, because that could be really, really good to look at. The funny thing is that I know he's hated, but I actually could see Ayew playing this position. But I think the problem is, I've mentioned this before, is that Ayew is that he just sticks his bum out and he wants to win the foul, which is against what you're trying to do. You want to keep the ball moving and rotating as fast as possible. But, fair play to Jordan Ayew. He's got a goal from a corner in the preseason friendly. And you could say that's a bit lucky, but I mean, those Olympic goals, normally, it's not the easiest to perform. So it's something we could look at. But look, I think like most people, I think we do need to find a new player to perform that position. But with there being 46 games in the season, I'm interested to see what Marti will come up with. And he could try something like a false 9. I could see it there.
Do you want me to bring that goal up quick? Because I've got it here.
Yeah, please, if you got it.
Yeah, here it is. Here is the goal that I'm referring to. You got that? Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
there you go.
Lovely diag, as you say.
Look at that!
Can he apply the finish? He certainly can.
Just one more time.
Exciting.
One more time, yeah.
Track goes long. That's to Evans. It's a good ball as well, and an excellent first touch from Jake Evans. Can he apply the finish?
Left footed as well. That's a left foot finisher as well. Unbelievable. So we could see something like that. And again, that was Wilson Brown, I think, they're playing the ball out there in the middle. So very exciting to see. Vestergaard's false 9. Let's hope not. So next key people in this team are the wingers. And believe it or not, this is Hristo Stoichkov. Needs no introduction. This is actually Cheeky Begastarian, who's the current director of football, or was the director of football. So he used to be a winger for Barcelona in this team, believe it or not. So we're lucky that in our team, we've got 2 wingers that we know are unbelievable at championship level. And I think we are all excited to see the return of Abdul, right? I feel like this season, for me, even though he's not even played a minute yet, he could be an early contender for player of the season just for how he is good. Now, the wingers, they are key, as it is here, of creating space and chances. We know they're going to be playing high up. I think they might be playing even higher up now, actually, under Marti than they did under Enzo. But one big difference is that under Enzo, they stuck as wide as possible. Now, they will definitely start wide, but I think what you'll see is that these players will cut in a lot more often than they did before. And that is to create some of these sort of like rotations to allow maybe the striker to drift out wide instead, and also to be more of a goal threat. Of course, we did see that also with Enzo as well, cutting in to have a chance. But you can see here, by cutting in, the player who's going to be at the head of the diamond is going to be able to find them with the through ball. So that's a little bit of a difference, because you can see that the difference here is that under Enzo, this player would be next to wings, and you'd only have sort of 2 people here. By committing this extra man forward, you're really got a lot of problems as a defensive unit. So who you're going to tackle here? You basically got you got 6 players forward instead of 5, which is very exciting to go that way. And you also see, yes, I mentioned this before, as you can see here that the attacking midfielder might come in here. Look, the striker here is drifted out to the left-hand side. That means the wingers now come inside. So you're getting all of this rotation all over the place, and it's going to cause a lot of chaos. And that chaos is what's going to generate the chances to score goals. Also, the important thing about having a winger is that they've got to do the defensive work. I think, to be fair, that's something that Enzo was really, really good for. I keep coming back to that game against Birmingham where Steffi Mavididi was man of the match. He scored 2 goals, but he also made the most tackles and interceptions of any outfield player. So it was a complete performance. So he's going to have to put that sort of work rate in again. And then why do you need to put that work rate in? Well, look, if you lose the ball, like in this situation, because you've only got 3 defenders here at times, you can really get caught out. So you've got to win that ball back quickly. So when we talked about the P in pressing, that's why pressing is so important, because if you lose the ball, you have got to win that ball back quickly.
Yes.
Because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. So let's talk about some of this off the ball work. It's funny, yeah. Now Mavididi could cut in even more. Well, yeah, let's watch out for that. So yeah, the high numbers that we're going to be committing forward mean that if we do lose the ball, you can commit more to a press than you maybe could before. And there's pros and cons to that. I think the pro is it's very exciting. I think when you talk about the original Guardiola team or the MSN team that you mentioned, even the current PSG team, they do this a lot as well. Good for him. I don't mind. Marti can use it if he wants to, but I really want to see what he comes up with. So this is something, again, taken from the Coach's Voice video, but it shows you the sort of structure. I'm going to show you some clips as well of it in action in games. So we got this concept of a rest defense. So the rest defense is actually what you're defending, even though you're attacking. Where does that sound? So you can see here that, like, here, you want to attack. Well, what happens if this fullback or winger here has got into this position and you lose the ball? And here you can see that the ball got played into this this opposition player. But you can see the way that the structure is, and he said in the Coach's Voice, is the idea of having one additional man more than your opponent when you're compacting the play into one phase of the game. So that actually means that the opposition will have an overload on you if they can get the ball out to certain players fast enough. But that's a dangerous ball and a hard ball for them to make. So in this case, if this ball does get played here into their winger, you can see that the regista here can step over and you've got a 2-on-1. And you can see here as well that you've got 5 surrounding one person here. And then, the 7-second rule you've probably heard of. You can win the ball back quickly, you'll snap it back, and you can turn defense into attack. And, someone did ask at the start of the show, what are the differences between Roll and Cifuentes? But I would say this is probably the biggest difference, is that Danny Roll will also go for this kind of winning the ball back quickly. But he might go that from a bit more chaos, just like pumping the ball into a certain area rather than finding a man. I think there's more purpose in Marti's style. That means there's more vulnerabilities, but you will still get the thing that I think both of them have in sort of the synchronicity, which is similar, is that you could both win the ball back on the second phase of attack. So you might actually start to attack, the attack goes wrong, but even though the attack goes wrong, you end up scoring from it because you win it back from a press. So that's something that's a really nice feature of the play. And here you can see, here's an example in the match. You can see again that how many of the players have compacted down into one part of the pitch. You've only got one player on the other side there, so you will get caught out and get played there. But look how many men are on that side of the pitch. And here's an example of this in play. If they hear they're playing Preston with the keeper, they're going to be playing it out. And now you can see that the press works really well, really quickly. Look how many players they've got. Play the ball in.
Oh,
Bozo moment. They should have scored there, but they didn't. So that's the example of the high press, and you saw everything.
Is that Frey? Is it again or?
No, that's Sam Field there, I believe. There.
Okay,
that played that there. Field.
See, if that's you know what, I don't want to touch wood here, but if that's even Wilfred and Didi, I think that's in the back of the net. To be honest with you. So yeah.
Do you know what, Mr. Travel Sick? It's unfortunate we don't have Vardy, because Vardy proved under Enzo that he would be an amazing false 9, and I think he would score a lot of goals in this type of system. But yeah, look at the spaces look how much space he had there. It's actually unbelievable to think that he missed there. But unfortunately he did. So that sort of shows you sort of one of the areas there. Now, that's obviously when the press works. But what happens when that doesn't break down? Or what happens when you have to defend? Some teams, I think against a lot of the teams, we will have a lot of the ball. But we are going to be playing Ipswich. We are going to be playing Southampton. Maybe even Birmingham or Coventry could be difficult opposition. What happens when we play them? There are going to be phases of the game where they have a lot of play and we're going to be in more of a defensive shape. So in those cases, we have seen it before, is that QPR, they would put one of the defenders coming back to join as a defensive shape. So you can see here that quite often they would play just the 4-4-2 defense. But I think something that was interesting, is that, they wouldn't just defend in a 4-4-2. Sometimes, depending on the opposition, they might change their shape. So sometimes I've seen them defend in this sort of shape, which is more of a 4-3-3. He can see it sort of shaped here, although the wingers are a bit more narrow here. It depends on who they're playing. And here's an example of that in the games. You can see, look, how much closer the one man up top than the next three behind. You got the defenders in between. So that's an off the ball 4-3-3 shape. And sometimes I've even seen them defend like this in a 4-1-4-1 shape. This is actually something that I saw Maresca do quite recently as well. Right? At the start of his Chelsea era, you'd have sort of Cole Palmer pressing in the midfielder and joining in. And here you can see this sort of shape as well. So you've got here in red QPR, 4-1 here and another 4 here. The other players up on top. So we will be defending in that sort of shape at times too. So that all sounds good. And maybe right now we've talked really well about Marti, but I think it's important, people have been asking, well, what could go wrong? And I've been alluding to it many times over. But I think
it will
Absolutely.
more than once. It will go wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it went wrong for Enzo sometimes as well. But I think the most likely thing that goes wrong when you play a system like this is something like this. The QPR here are actually on the attack, right? And they're going to go for a pass here, and that's been one back. But because they committed so many men forward, look how few they've got at the back. And that means there's an overload. And that's a pretty tame finish. So that's going to be the sort of issue that you are going to see. Now, look, I think to be fair, QPR, they were actually 2-0 up when they gave this goal away. So again, I think people talking about, is it going to be boring at the King Power? Well, you can see that they still kept going for it, even at that scoreline. But it does show you that on transition, you're going to get caught. And you might have heard me say that I have said a few times that I think that this style will work in the Championship, but I'm a little bit more skeptical about if it will work in the Premier League. Now, I didn't show it in this particular slide, but I mean, I think, we could talk about where I think it's going to go. We talk about the Leeds game, right? That's something where they did a really good job, where they didn't have much possession and they still managed to win. But, we don't know. I'll come to that, I think, like another time in another sort of show. But I think just to kind of round it up, and we'll get to the discussion because we've been going on for a while here, is let's compare Cifuentes to Maresca. So you have got a similar 3-4-1-2 shape, but generally speaking, you're only going to have one person in the pivot. So for QPR, it was Varane. For us, it will almost certainly be wings. And it means that player who would be next to him, if it's going to be Ricardo or somewhere else, sometimes they'll be next to him, but a lot of the time they won't. They'll be a bit further advanced. That's probably the big difference we're going to see. As a result of that, it means we're going to be more exciting to watch. Because I was a big fan of Enzo, but I will say that I do think there were definitely games under Enzo where it was boring. And the one I always kind of come back to is we'd won the league, we were playing Blackburn at home, and I remember the first 45 minutes, I can't remember anything happening of notice that Leicester did, other than right at the end conceding to a Sammy Schmodik's goal, because they were just too patient. They were waiting for Blackburn to jump from their press, and Blackburn just didn't do it. So we don't need to worry about that. I think Marti Cifuentes is the type of manager he will force a play when he wants to do it. And I'll show you some examples, is that he's willing to go direct. So get it forwards and put in a cross. We are going to see that on occasion. And if there are players who are good in the air, that are good at being mobile, he will look to find them. So I don't know, if Wilfred Ndidi stays, maybe we'll see us trying to activate him more with some kind of headers. But look, I think here's the difference, right? Enzo's style is better at being sort of lower risk, but it could be dull to watch. So that's sort of the difference, right? And look, you have to say fair play to Enzo. At the top level in the FIFA World Cup final against PSG, they won 3-0. PSG had all the possession, and Enzo wasn't taking as many risks. And actually, a lot of the goals that PSG conceded is because they committed the extra man forward. There was a gap in behind the fullbacks because they pushed Nuno Mendes and Hakimi up, and Chelsea found the gaps in behind. So his style, I think, does work. But look, I think we're fans and we want to see some excitement. And I think we'll have a more exciting manager this time around. So that's it. That is Marti. Welcome to Leicester City. Let's get all the comments up and discuss it. But yeah, I think just before I pass on, I mean, it didn't work out so well for QPR. But I think that would be, I've shown you some clips there. So here's sort of my take on it. I think that the reason why he didn't do so well for QPR is I think he didn't quite have the personnel to play that system of football with that team. And I showed you at least 2 or 3 examples where they should have scored and they absolutely bozed it up. They had literally tap-ins, right? Or a free shot on goal and they didn't even hit the target in both of those examples. The other thing I think is that, defensively, his players, I don't think are going to be as good as ours. I think fast, mobile players that can defend, and the 3 that I'm most excited to see, Ben Nelson, Caleb Okoli, and Mr. Aluko. I think those three together could be exciting. But even if it's not those three, I hate to say it, I think Wout Faes would play well in this system. Vestergaard, not so much. Anyway, let's get on to the comments. And what do you think, Locks, of Marty now that you've seen all this sort of stuff? And yeah, let's put a poll up if you don't mind to sort of see what people think.
Yeah, let me do that. So yeah. I was going to say some of these comments did come in before at the start. So before you've gone through certain things, so that's important to remember. So there's a comment here from Olza. I'm hoping for some quality attacking football next season, or just anything exciting that will get us through back to the Prem. And as you said, Anil, higher risk with Marti, but would you say higher rewards? Maybe more goals scored, more goals conceded as well, but more exciting games.
Big time. So I think that's a really good comment. And I think it sums up Marti that like he beat Leeds 4-0, but he also got beat at home 5-0 to Burnley when they got 100 points. And that was the Burnley team that at one point, I think had like 8 games in a row that were 0-0. So, that shows you that he is willing to take the risk, but it could be a little bit too risky at times. But what do you want as fans? I mean, personally, I'd rather be, even if you get beat like a 4-3 or something like that, but sometimes I don't even mind it. Like, do you remember there was a game, it was bizarrely enough under Claude Puel of all people, where we played Wolves and they beat us 4-3. Diego Jota, RIP, got a hat-trick that day. But we got back to, I think, from 2-0 down to 2-2, then it was 3-3, then they won 4-3. And you know what? Even though we lost that game, at the end of it, I was like, do you know what? It's a good game of football, though, wasn't it? I mean, you win some, you lose some. I'll take that sort of game all day.
Yeah. Yes, it is official, Paul. Yeah, we did a stream an hour ago as well, mate. So the instant reaction to it all. Travel Sick here says we may actually score some goals this season. I think that's a given because of the league we're in. But of course, Marty ball, if we want to call it that. Here's a question. Where obviously this isn't what he's asked, but his question to you: where would you see Skip fitting into this team now?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think from the way that he's been utilized already this season, let me skip back to it, but I think he might be the sort of roaming midfielder, this type of position, because I think Wing's pretty decent at picking the ball up deep and he can sort of join the attacks. But the thing is, Manny would be saying this, and be quite right to say this, is that you look at Oliver Skip and how many goal contributions does he have in his entire career? He doesn't have enough. Now, what I will say is Enzo Maresca, when he coached Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, he said to me, Kiernan, you're a great player, but your numbers are rubbish. You need to add it. A player of your ability should be hitting goals and assists big time, right? So that's my challenge for you. At the end of the season with 17 goals, 10 assists. So he was able to perform. So he could be in that position. But I think, Manny said 3 goals in his career. So, he needs to get him out of it. But look what I showed you with Jimmy Dunn. Jimmy Dunn was a player that I don't think anyone would have expected to put up those stats, and he did. So it depends on who's going to. So I think he might be competing for that type of position. I think there are many people ahead of him. But look, let's see what he can do. It's a new manager, clean slate, right?
I was going to say, you say about you didn't expect Dunn to put those numbers up. Like, nobody would have thought Ndidi would have been one of the biggest assist makers. But over the last 2 seasons, I think he is our highest assister, which is nuts, right? Also, there is a poll in the chat, so make sure you get voted. Just to let you know, Neil, so far, the question was, after seeing the analysis, do you think Marty was the right choice? Yes, no, reserving judgment. So far, there's 45 votes, and not a single person has said no. Not a single person has said no. So there's only 43 votes, and there's over 200 of you watching on YouTube. So get over to the live chat and vote in that poll, please. There's a comment here saying, if we lose El Canus, expect to bid for Elias Chair. Now, when a manager moves from one club to another, of course, there's always a link to one of his ex-players. You look at Enzo, he signed Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. We were talking about Brownhill and Begovic when Dyche was linked. Would you like to see Elias Chair come in if El Canus was to leave, or do you think we should be looking better, above that?
I think that's a great question. It's the obvious one to pick for. We know that Elias Chair is great in the Championship. I will say that I didn't show him too much in this analysis, but most of the time when I saw QPR doing something good, it was him that was involved. And it was either him scoring a goal, providing assist, or do you know what? Even if he didn't score or assist, he was dragging players out of position. He was playing this particular possession really, really well. So he could definitely be one for there. Now, the thing I will say is that, Championship is a 46-game season. So really, you need to have 2 players for every position, because especially when it hits Christmas time, when you get 1 game every 3 days, the players are going to get tired. And if you're playing this high pressing football, you're going to get even more tight. So we definitely need more players there. My issue if you bring someone like Chair in is, does that block the pathway for Jeremy Monga, for Jake Evans, who just scored that amazing goal that you showed? So that's something to think about. Also, will Chair, is he good enough for the Premier League? He might be. I've got a feeling that he might be on one of those players like a Winks even, that they're too good for the Championship, but are they good enough for the Premier League? I don't want to judge him yet. He's not been played in that division yet, so I can't really judge. But look, it depends. If you could get Elias Chair for, let's say, 5 million, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer, right? But we'll see. But I don't know about you, Locks, but how many transfers are you expecting to see? I think it's mainly going to be loan signings and free transfers. Maybe, like, you know, what we heard Rob Dorset say, he says he will only be able to buy players if we sell. We haven't sold anyone yet. If we do sell Bilal, though, I get it. You're thinking, well, it's kind of Moroccan for Moroccan, right? Isn't it? So you bring in Chair instead of him. It's possible. Good player. But let's see. Oh, you're mute, I think.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, Manny said correct. Chair, although talented, is a blocker, and he's obviously got a questionable past for smashing someone's skull in over in Holland or something. But anyway, we'll move on from that. Travel 6 says, Ndidi almost played free man under Enzo. Him and Fatawu linked up so many times. Yeah, I still think that was one of the best partnerships we saw under Enzo. Ndidi and Fatawu down that right-hand side, I think was excellent. There's a question here. I know we haven't seen too much of him yet. It's early days, mate, but could the Laudrup role be given to Page? There's another contender for that role, maybe?
Do you know what? I didn't think of that, but that's a spicy one. And I quite like that, to be honest with you. I was really impressed by how intelligent he was. Yeah, it could be. I think, do you know what? If he was going to play exactly what I'm showing here now, yes, big time. Left-footed player on the left-hand side, got the, you know, energy and up and down. He absolutely would do it. I think what we would see less of is that he then wouldn't be the one who would be like playing as a false nine if we went that way. I don't think he'd be given that position. But you know what? It doesn't have to be this guy. It could be another side, right? You're always allowed to reverse things over depending on what players you've got, you know? So, yeah, do you know what? I mean, it's funny. That first game he played, Lewis Page, he looked unbelievable, right? But I think the second game, he was in the first 11, where Monga got the own goal against someone, didn't he? But I don't think he showed up as much. But I think this system would benefit from him. And again, that's about, like, you know, if you sign Chair who's also left-footed, does that also block the pathway for someone like him? I think I would rather start someone like Lewis Page, except that he might not be great to begin with, but come the end of the season, he's an absolute beast, rather than sort of block his pathway. So I like that. I think a good take. I would go with that. I would give him a try.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, we have Golding as well. Sorry, just
Golding.
You're right as well. He's been playing that position too in the team, and I think he could do it as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Tita Blue, great presentation. Fantastic to educate our fan base to get behind our manager and team. There's a comment here. Sandip says, exciting times ahead. I think we all agree with that, hopefully. There's a comment here from Manny saying, but we are a different animal now with a similar style to Chelsea and Spanish, like Mark Gayu, Manny keeps talking about, makes sense for all parties, potentially. Anyway, what I thought we'd do in Nil is actually I'll tell you what, let me bring up the poll quickly, just because otherwise I will forget to bring up the results. There we go. Yeah, what I thought we'd do in Nil before finishing as well is there is now an interview out
let's look at it
of Marti of Marti. So let me bring up the results of the poll first. So as I said, I did ask, after seeing the analysis, do you think Marti was the right choice? And these are the results. 84% said yes, 15% said reserving judgment. Of course, as always, there's 1% missing. Get that fixed, YouTube. But not one person said no, which is promising, which is good.
You know what? I like that. I think even the ones that are reserving judgment, like, I think it is important now that we get behind this manager. And, you know, look, unfortunately, it was disastrous with Ruud. Let's not, you know, lie about it. But the thing is that, like, you know, Ruud did come in also under challenging circumstances. And this manager is also going to have a challenge. And, you know, one thing I didn't mention in this analysis, but I think is important to note, is that because he's come in so late, he's already missed a few weeks to get his ideas across. And that is a bit of a shame. Like, I mentioned this with Enzo, but that first game that we went back to against Burton Albion, that was 2 weeks into pre-season and they were already doing the patterns. Well, we are 2 weeks into pre-season now. So the problem is that now when we see the next game that we play, if you're going to be like, well, Anil, you said that we're going to play this 3-1, 3-3, and it's nothing like that. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we're not doing that for the first game. He hasn't had time to go with it. So I think he might play more Enzo's system to begin with and then adapt it over time. But yeah, I think even though we've got like a gentle start, I would say, you've got to give a manager like this at minimum 10 games before you really start making judgments. I would expect there to see a lot of rotations. I wouldn't be surprised if like, oh, this week, is it a little bit like just, random selects as to what plays in what positions? But you need to give people a little bit of that effort. What I think where you're right to have concern is that, when we start hitting Christmas time, if there isn't like a consistency, that's a bit different. But, remember again, like under Enzo, he started with like Dennis Pratt in the team, but indeed he took that position. We had Callum Doyle got replaced by James Justin. So there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah. Adrian says, waiting for the new kit, just go past the stripes. Right, let's bring this up. So it is a little bit long, so we'll see how far we get through it. But yeah, let's bring it up. So here we go. Lovely background there of Seagrave, of course. I'm sure we'll get the annual video of a new manager walking through Seagrave, just looking amazed at all of the facilities. We get that every year. And John Rodkin making an appearance as well, showing him around the dressing room, of course. But anyway, let's play this. I'm going to mute myself and you, Anil, just so we don't get any feedback as well.
Yep.
Very excited and looking forward to start. There is a fantastic potential and quality in the squad. Everybody knows how tough, how ruthless this league can be. To achieve targets in life, to achieve targets especially in football, you need from everyone. So it's not a one-man task. I think it's very important to build a relation with the fans, and hopefully we're going to deliver what they want. Look, I was born in Barcelona and I grew when Johan Cruyff took over, and definitely that shaped my way of watching football, of understanding football. My purpose is always to be a dominant team, being very competitive. At the end, we're here to win football games, but doing it in a certain way. Looking forward to meet the group, to meet all the players.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the club.
Thank you.
Well, Marti, welcome to Leicester City. How pleased are you to be here now?
Very excited and looking forward to start to work with you guys.
What attracted you to the role here?
First of all, the history of the club. Definitely, I know about how big is the history and the tradition of the club. Second, because I think that there is a fantastic potential and quality in the squad. I'm looking forward as well to work with people that have certainly achieved big things in football in this club. And third, and especially as well, I think we have one of the best training facilities in the world, a fantastic stadium. So there is definitely a lot of things that attracted me.
So when you first heard of the interest then from Leicester, you immediately obviously knew the club, and that then made you think, yes, definitely, this is what I want to do.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 40.
I'm an amateur. Here we go.
Look, from someone coming from Barcelona, obviously already knew a bit about Leicester. Obviously, the last 2 years in UK helped me to understand more what's the meaning of the club. But when you just think about the legends that have been playing here, like Peter Shilton, Gordon Banks, Gary Lineker, I mean, it says a lot about the size of this club. And obviously, everyone is aware about what happened 10 years ago. So, yeah, it was definitely very excited.
So tell us a little bit about your journey then, if you like, in coaching, because it started very young, didn't it? And it's taken you all over Europe as well. How much have you enjoyed it so far?
So far, it's a fantastic journey. I would say from someone who started to play the game when I was 6-7 years old, and suddenly as well, for different reasons, why I started to coach quite early. I really love it from day one. And yeah, it's true that the game, you never know where it will be the next step. But I had the opportunity now to coach in 5 different countries, and to have the opportunity to train in a club like this in England, it's a fantastic experience.
As you said, it was at quite a young age, wasn't it? So it's something that you've always known you've had a passion for, and in managing, be it managing or coaching. Definitely. When I was playing already, I think that I was 13, 14 years old, and I was starting to prepare lineups and kind of analyzing the teams. So I think it was very clear for me that I wanted to play as much as I could, but at the same time, it was always on my mind to start to coach. What I didn't expect is to start to coach as soon as I did, but so far I don't regret, just the opposite. I'm enjoying it every piece. In terms of that experience then, obviously during your time with QPR, you know all about the Championship. What have you learnt about English football in that time, and what have you learnt about the Championship itself?
Well, definitely, I was watching a lot of games before coming to England. Everybody knows how tough, how ruthless this league can be. But the fact that it's 46 games, the fact that it's definitely a very demanding league in terms of not only the physical power, but as well mentally. It's a league that demands a lot from all the players, from the staff. So in that sense, I learned a little bit more about each team, about the ways of playing that you can find across the league. But for me, definitely, it has been a good learning the last 2 years.
And certainly when you arrived at QPR, you completely turned around the fortunes at that club on the pitch. So is that something that you're always confident of doing, coming in somewhere and hitting the ground running straight away?
Yeah, I always say that so far I've been a lucky coach, because it's true that we achieved, in that case, a very important, I would say, not only target, but a big challenge, because it was not an easy situation. But I say always the same. I trust that to achieve targets in life, to achieve targets, especially in football, you need from everyone. So it's not a one-man task. It's about especially the players. They must be the ones getting the headlines. But at the same time, it's about all the stuff behind the scenes, all the people that works relentlessly behind the scenes, and as well, especially the fans. And in that case, they play a big part of our achievement, and hopefully it's going to be the same here.
You were certainly a very popular manager with the supporters at Loftus Road. Is that something then, clearly you've brought it up yourself, that is very important to you and something that you want to build immediately when you come into Leicester?
I think it's very important to build a relation with the fans, especially when we speak about clubs like Leicester with a fantastic support, and I'm looking forward to meet them, and hopefully we're going to deliver what they want, because for me it's not about me, it's about the team, that they feel this engagement every time we play, the way we attack, the way we face the games, the way we approach the games, that they feel that that's exactly what they want. Some days hopefully many days we're going to win. If some days we will lose, I just want them to go home, be sad about the result, but still proud about the effort of the team. And that's definitely something that we're going to try to build together.
Let's pause there, Anil, halfway through, mate. Lots of stuff. Is that true? Was oh, sorry, I was reading. Yeah, lots of interesting things that he's brought up there halfway through, Anil. What do you make to it so far? Because obviously this is mine and yours first time watching this.
Well, that's just it, isn't it? It's literally our fresh reaction to it. I will say, I mentioned this in one of our shows, that I thought that sometimes I'd seen him interviewed and he came across as a bit drab, a bit like Claude Puel. But I take that back. He must have just been having a hard day. Firstly, I think he's very eloquent. And look, we did say that Ruud speaks well, which is true. But I think Ruud did come across sometimes as he wasn't that interested. He was maybe a bit too calm for him. Whereas he's got, I wouldn't say it's full flair, but you can see there's a lot more interest. I think what he's saying, he's more active in terms of what he's talking about there, which is good. I think that is important.
And we know.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I was just going to interrupt you and say we know this guy's interested because he's paid 250k of his own money to come.
Well, absolutely. That could be unbelievable, to be honest with you. It's done that, but he does. What I'm saying is, I think he does look like someone that I think can connect with the fans. I really think that is important. I've said this a lot of times that, the managers that I think historically have done well at Leicester, Martin O'Neill, Nigel Pearson, even Ranieri. Now, Ranieri's English wasn't the best, but come on, he connects with us big time, right? He just did it in a different way with his dilly ding dilly dongs, right? You know what? I'll go as far as saying that even though he's a great coach, I don't think Brendan Rodgers ever connected with the Leicester City fan base. That is my honest opinion. I think people always thought he was a little bit smarmy. So that comes across well. But look, some of his other stuff, look, he did say right at the beginning there that Johan Cruyff was his, that's his philosophy. So that's why we went on his history lesson today. And I think that is exciting because, as I say to you, look, I think a lot of people, and they're quite right to say that they don't, I remember we speak to Kate on this quite often, and she'll say, look, I understand why people play possession football, but I just don't find it interesting. That will be her words. And I understand exactly where she's coming from. But I think if you play it the right way, I think you can fall in love with this style of football. And that's why I'm personally excited, because if you can get it to work, that kind of dream team style, honestly, it is absolutely unbelievable. It'll get you. You'll remember some of those goals for a long time. What do you think, Lux? Because you've asked me, but how about you? What do you think about Marti?
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels after the whole Ruud debacle, it almost feels wrong to say he speaks well, because that's what we all said. He speaks well. He speaks well. Aura, that was the other one as well, right? But no, it's true. It's true. He seems incredibly intelligent, as did Enzo as well at the time. This guy actually speaks, I think, English a little bit better than Enzo as well, a bit more kind of fluently in how he speaks, which is a positive. We were on the show last week as well, and we were looking into him, and we saw that he speaks like 5 or 6 different languages as well: French, Italian, Danish, I think was one of them. So that's fucking good.
Really? That's quite impressive.
Yeah, because I think he was obviously up in that area, right? And he managed the Danish team, didn't he?
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the team. And of course, I think you're right. I think this guy is willing, like we keep saying it, and we spoke about it during the analysis, but this guy is willing to adapt. And he just spoke about there saying that, he wants the fans on board. Now, with Enzo Maresca, rightly or wrongly, he did have his moments where he came out in the press and said, if the fans ain't happy, basically fuck off. That's basically what he was saying. That's what he was saying, basically. Yeah. He was saying, if no one believes me, I'll leave and all this, right? Which is, I understand why he said it, and I think some people needed to hear it. But I think this guy is a lot more probably sympathetic or empathetic, whatever the word is, and I think he wants the fans. He will try his best to get the fans on board. Yeah, Aalborg, that's the team that he managed in Denmark. So yeah, let's watch the second half of this, and then we will conclude.
And in terms of Leicester, you've tasted success already at King Power Stadium. What were your memories of that day? Obviously a very important victory for your team there, but you've also tasted defeat there as well. So what did you like about King Power Stadium and the supporters?
It was a fantastic atmosphere in both games. It's true that the last season game in the FA Cup, it was a bit special because all the fog and everything. But I have probably better memories in that case about the 2 years ago game. And in that sense, it was an important victory for us. But I know about the quality of Enzo's team. Enzo did a fantastic job, and I'm looking forward to experience the feeling of winning as a home team.
What can the supporters expect from you as a manager? Do you have a set philosophy, a set style of play? How do you see the game?
Look, I was born in Barcelona, and I grew when Johan Cruyff took over in Barcelona, and definitely that shaped my way of watching football, of understanding football. And my purpose is always to be a dominant team. I want a team that has an attacking.
Still planning your day in the Stone Age? Well, we've evolved beyond pen and paper to schedules that think for themselves. Planners are
way of understanding the game, that despite we score the 1-0, we always chase the second goal and the third one. And I want the fans to have fun. So it will be about being very competitive. At the end, we're here to win football games, but doing it in a certain way. And that means to be very dominant, to try to regain the ball quick, to use the ball to move the position, to create the spaces, and to create as many chances as we can.
Let me pause it there, Anil. He spoke about his philosophy. He obviously mentioned Johan Cruyff, Barcelona. What did you make to what he said there, mate? Because obviously Dan Bates asked him, what can they expect? What's your philosophy? And he said it how it is, basically.
That is good. I mean, I actually do think it's important to have a philosophy and a style of play. So I'm looking forward to it. And look, that's why I did the lesson today. I mean, as soon as he did that masterclass, it made me laugh because I've seen this time and time again. I remember that, actually, I'll be honest with you, when you study for your badges, that Johan Cruyff team is actually a team you're supposed to study because he literally changed the game. Like I say, that is why do all teams these days only play one striker up front? It's because of Johan Cruyff's system that was beating teams 5-0, 4-0, 4 league titles in a row. It's all from that. And do you know what makes me excited, Locks, is this. So the reason why that team is so fondly remembered in Barcelona is because it connected with the crowd. They played this brilliant attacking football, but he also promoted players from the academy who became first-team players. Guardiola, Ferrer, Busquets, Bexterian, all of these players. And they added world-class players on top of it. And that's why they have fond memories. And that game, I don't know if you heard the audio earlier, but in that 5-0 game, if you hear the atmosphere in that stadium at the time, even to this day, it makes the hairs on your neck increase. And for me, too often now at the King Power, it's just dead. No one cares. So if that's what he aspires to be, that is a brilliant thing to aspire to.
And you mentioned the players that he brought through, right, from the academy, that Johan Cruyff obviously used a lot of at Barcelona. I think it's important as well. This is when I said the other day on the streaming that imagine you're Jeremy Monger or Bilal El Khanous sat in the gym at Seagrave and you saw Chris Wilder walk through the door. You're like, get me on the first train out of here. But this guy coming in with all his ideas, with all his knowledge, with his culture, his footballing culture. I'm not, we've said it ourselves. We think El Khanous is going to leave, but I'll say it again. We've got a better chance of keeping him with this man here. You know what I mean? Rather than some of the other names linked, right? So yeah, we've got a few minutes left of this video, or a couple of minutes left. So let's get back to it.
I think that's something that it certainly excites me. I'm sure it excites the supporters that are watching along, that they can hear and they can know that when they come to the stadium, whether it's home or away, they know they're going to watch a team that's going to be on the front foot, that's going to look to try and score goals.
Definitely, that's going to be the purpose. And some days, perhaps the position as well plays a big part in this game. So sometimes we're going to face different kind of oppositions, teams that will play very aggressive, almost man-man, high press, which requires certain things. Sometimes we're going to face teams that will stay low and deep, and we're going to need to use other tools. But at the end, for me, the main target is that the players understand what to expect from them, what is the plan, and from that, try to go from minute one for the victory.
Coming up, of course, is the trip away to Austria. How excited are you for that? I imagine it's come at a really good time because you will have that time away with the group and you can get to know everybody.
Yeah, it's a very good opportunity because, in fact, I'm looking forward to meet the group, to meet all the players. In this kind of stage and camps, you have the opportunity as well to know the players a little bit out of the pitch, to spend a little more time with the guys, and it's definitely going to be a very important piece of our preparations for the season.
Because I guess as a manager, there's you know what the players are like on the pitch, you know what they're like as footballers, but as people, you need to get an idea of what they're like as well, because that might help shape decisions that you make.
Yeah, 100%. I think that we have seen a lot of this team, not only obviously because we face many of those players 2 seasons ago, and then in last season in the FA Cup, but as well we have been watching a lot about the games in the Premier League. And yeah, you're right. We know a little bit about how they performed last season, but at the same time, we want to meet them to understand where they are mentally. And I'm aware that sometimes after a difficult season, we need to make sure that we recover a little bit this self-esteem, this understanding that they are very good football players. And I'm here to make sure that they are aware of that.
Of course, there'll be a lot of double sessions out there. It's an awful lot of time that you'll have up close with the squad to get across your philosophy, your style. Are you very much a hands-on manager? Are you out there on that training pitch every second?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I'm aware that sometimes in England, especially at the Championship, the schedule is so demanding. So it's true that at times, if I need to stay in the office to have meetings or to prepare a game plan, I'll do it. But I would say that 99% of times I'm out in the pitch working with the players. I like to be close. I like to be involved in the drills. So I'm not the kind of coach that will stay just looking around, but working hands-on with the players.
And you'll have a number of games as well in pre-season before the season, of course, starts, including a game against Fiorentina at King Power Stadium. How long does it take? Quite a difficult question, maybe, as a manager to start to implement what you want to do.
Yeah, it's never easy to answer this because I'm one that I always think that all the teams can improve and can develop, and this is part of management to understand the moment of the team. But certainly, some of the reasons that attract me to be here, it was as well that I think that there is a good fit between the quality of those players and the style of football that I like to play. So hopefully that means that, of course, it's going to take some time until we see the version of the team that I would like to see. But I will say that the base, I'm sure that it's going to be there from day one.
Just finally, is there anything specific, any direct messages you'd like to give to the supporters?
Look, I'm looking forward to give them something that they will appreciate, and this will be to win as many games as we can, but to do it in a certain style. Hopefully they will be as engaged as I am with the project. And yeah, looking forward to meet them very soon.
Well, there we go. Very, very interesting interview there. Very good interview. I don't know what else to say other than that. And I think it was quite impressive. Looking at the chat as well, the live chat is extremely positive. Thinking back to when Ruud van Nistelrooy came in, there was even some negatives in the comments, talking about it. But on the most part today, people seem excited. People seem like they're going to get behind him, and they're really, really interested to see, what Leicester looks like under him.
Big time. Look, I loved what he said at the end there. He said, I want to win, but I want to win it playing good stuff in a certain style. That's what I want to see as well. I know a lot of fans will be saying, I just want to see us win. I don't really care about how we play. I've always said differently. That the only reason I'm on the fan channel like this is because I care about it. Sometimes even those of course, the odd shit house win you don't mind here and there, but I like seeing some of those sequences you saw from QPR. So I'm looking forward to that. One thing I'll note there, I found interesting. He had one tell in that entire interview. So Dan Bates asked him, goes, how long will it take? And he actually did this with his hand and he put it up there, which is sort of show you're unsure, you're a bit nervous. To be fair, he then, exactly. He did that with, subconsciously. He did say, look, I want to try and get it across as fast as possible, but it will take time. He did say that. So again, that's what I said to you guys about we've got to give him time and expect there to be, honestly, I would expect there to be quite a few goals that we concede by, I wouldn't quite say bozo moments, but it's going to get turned over and you're going to be like, why have we only got 2 defenders back? We might get a few Ange situations where it just looks a bit suicide ball, but you got to stick with it. So I am excited. Yeah. Manny sums it up there. High quality football is winning football. Yeah. Big time.
Yeah, and don't when we talk about this moment in there, don't forget that Enzo in his first press conference, he actually said that the aim is to not get promoted at first attempt. It's just to build something, right? This is what managers do. They're not going to come in and say we're going to win every game and get promoted, especially with the uncertain future around points deductions and things like that. But I think he did make some promises there. That he was going to, like you said, he's going to want to win games. He's going to want to do it in an attractive way. And he wants to give something. I think he said he wants to give the fans something that they can appreciate. That's what he said. So yeah. Let's end it with this comment from I'm not going to try and say that. It's another manager from Barca Man City cycle, but I will back every manager. He does give a good talk. If he's right, we are aggressive rather than in front of our keeper, then I will be happy. And I think from the analysis today, Anil, you expect this to be the case.
I think that's a perfect one to end with. So great statement. I think that's what we all hope for. Let's see if it comes true.
100%. Great analysis, Anil. Brilliant video. Thank you to, there's over 500 of you here now. There's over 220 of you on YouTube. So thank you to those that have stuck around. If anybody has just joined in the last 25 minutes, half hour, rewind to the start. Great analysis, and you can watch it all back. We also went live at 6 o'clock when the announcement came through, reacting to it. We had the Marti party. If anything crazy, I think I can actually relax now. There will not be an emergency stream, hopefully, until there's not points deduction news. I can relax, but we can all relax. But yeah, if there isn't anything crazy that happens, we will be back live tomorrow, 7 p.m, of course, for Fox's Den. And I think now it's the right time. I've been wanting to do a keep, loan, sell video for a while. And I didn't think it was quite right until we knew who the manager would be, because Marti might want different players than Sean Dyche does. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to do a 7 p.m. stream tomorrow. Keep, loan, sell, going through the squad. And hopefully this does not happen. Because we heard rumours that Ruud van Nistelrooy's first ever meeting with the players didn't really go very well. He basically told them, you're shit, after the Brentford game. So hopefully it doesn't go that way. But thanks to Anil. Big shout out to everybody in the chat as well. Hope you enjoyed the analysis. As I said, we'll be back 7 p.m. tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Marti party. Vamos. Vamos.